Good morning, all. This is the latest episode of the Turn It Round the Corner podcast. So this will be episode 18 with a gentleman named Mickey White. So, Mickey, how you doing?
All right, mate. Yeah, good.
So, Mickey's currently in Livingston in Scotland, but I think the title of this will be 34 countries and counting. So, Mick, you've been privileged enough to coach in 34 countries around the world. So, I'm going to have a little bash. I've been doing my research. So, India, Iceland, UK, Russia, South Korea, the
Yeah,
US,
yeah,
Malta, Milan, Channel Islands. Do you want to Saudi Arabia? Do you want to fill the gaps?
yeah. Just there's a couple of miss there. Yeah, Japan. Um, there's a, India was twice. Norway, Poland, Italy,
Wow,
Nigeria, Cameroon. Just to rattle a few off. Gibraltar, but a lot of them was we'll talk about later on. But there's with the when I was at my time at Bolton Wanderers, they had an international academy.
right,
So
okay,
some of those, that they would. I was living in Stockport, and I used to just get a quick call. Can you get to the airport? He'd lined the boss there had lined up something,
right.
um, and that's so that ticked off probably maybe 14, 15 countries in like 2 years, and I never seemed to be out of an airport. But yeah, that was
Amazing,
that.
mate.
Yeah,
Like it's great enough like traveling the world, but obviously doing it in a football environment is even better. So we'll get to that. Obviously, there's you say the in and out trips where you was working for Bolton and the international camps, but obviously you also done long stints abroad in different leagues and different countries. But how did you first get into coaching, Mick? Did you have a football career as well, or was it something that your passion's always been coaching? How did you initially get into that?
no, it was always minor with the football. I was at
Right.
Mansfield for a little bit, but nothing to say that it was like a pro career. Never really followed. Just passionate about football.
Yeah.
Sheffield United fan. Always followed the England stuff. So, and I was in catering. And I ended up in Jersey, in Channel Islands, and just started
Okay.
playing locally. Really,
Right.
got an injury. Got an not an excuse, but no, it was an injury. And one of the coaches said to me, you know, if you can't play again, um, we'll just get you as a coach. And I think I was 29, 30, and I was thinking, I'm not doing that. It's for old men. That was my
Yeah.
thinking. It was a bit naive, but so then as a couple of years went on and I was playing, so I'm becoming 32, 33, not a decent level, but some young good players, and they were knocking the ball past you. And I kept thinking, well, I've got to either kick this kid or chase him. And I thought, too tired to chase him. So it just ended up, I didn't want to kick somebody in a bad way. So I kind of filtered my way out. And I managed to get started on like a player coach thing where I used to play a few times and try and
Okay.
arrange. And it was quite good. It was in the first division. There was two divisions in Jersey, but it's all amateur.
Right.
Some good players though. Some good players have come from there. Um, and then I wanted to go for my B license. I'd got to level 2, and I wanted to go for my B. Like few people that no, there'll be no interest here for this. So I got fortunate at the time. Um, Jack Walker, that owned Blackburn Rovers, was living in Jersey, and by luck, we got to meet up. And I asked him just shortly before he passed away. I asked him if he'd. I want to go for a B, and can you help me sort of gain some experience? And quite fortunately, the CEO from Blackburn called me and said, "Look, you can come over." So I went to a study visit. Really, I went for like 8 days to Blackburn Rovers. Um, and it was really a massive insight. So the two ways my thinking was, the way to treat people and to be a good coach was not to follow the first team manager, Graham Souness, because it was vicious. It was savage.
Yeah.
So he kicked me out of training. I was watching the training with all the first team players, and then he came over to me and said, "Look, I don't know who you are. I don't know who you work for. Get out. Go with the reserve team." So I got kicked out of his training, sent over to the reserve team. So I couldn't see what corners they were working on, and free kick routines for the game the next day against Watford. So I could understand his thinking, but the way he went about it weren't very nice. But it was actually okay in the end. The way I learned a little bit more was a guy called Rob Kelly, and I think he's at Leicester now.
Mm-hmm.
A lovely guy. And he just listened to what I was saying about how I wanted to go about coaching. And at the end, he said, the only person stopping you is you. Honestly, he said, the only person stopping you is you. So I kind of carried on with that, mindset that I'm just kind of trying to be sort of as proactive as I could for my own benefit, if you get my meaning. So got back to Jersey, had the Blackburn trip, which was fantastic. Got to see how the pros worked. Sort of reset my standards for how I wanted to go about it. David Murray was also owned Rangers. I managed to run into him because he lived in Jersey as well at the time. So he got me to go to Rangers about 6 months later, maybe 2 years later, maybe, sorry. And I got to go and visit Rangers for a week, which was Alec McLeish, a guy called John Brown, Bomber Brown, who was like huge, big Rangers. And I got to meet all them guys and got to work with those. There was all guys that went on to be first team players. I was with the under 21s. So it sort of carried on from there, and it was sort of lining me up to go and try and get a B license. And while I was at Rangers, Dick Advocat had just finished. So there was one or two Dutch coaches left over, and I ran into one guy called Jan Dirks. He followed Frank Rijkaard around doing, assistant stuff for him later on. And again, on a bit of a chance, just to take my chance if I got it, he sent me to Ajax. So I got to work with Danny Blint, was the father of Daley Blint and Van Basten and these kind of people. So I kind of gained a lot of experience and a lot of good pointers from professional people to allow me to keep, to try and get somewhere in maybe trying to find a way of making money out of this. So that's how that sort of started.
So was you taking these ideas back, Mick? Were you just getting as much exposure to it as possible, and then going back and trying to implement that in your coaching when you was in Jersey?
I just couldn't get my head around. I couldn't get my head around how basic they kept it, keeping it simple and things. Little there's stuff I've seen. It is 20 odd years ago now, and I'm still using it now because it's nice. It'll move into a warm up that they used as a warm up. I would have used as for younger kids. I'd use as a main section of my of a control drill would be for this pros. It would just be a 10-minute warm up, So it was kind of things like that. So following on to that, I was asked by the captain of my team in Jersey, could I get him anything as a auction stuff? He was trying to raise money for a charity to go out to Africa and do some work. His dad had done it, etc. So I got him a shirt off Pele, and I gave him some other stuff. Anyway, it became a success. And his dad asked me to get a picture of Alan Sunderland, who'd scored the winner in the 1979 Cup final. So I managed to get some kind of contact. Anyway, it led me to Malta. So I wrote to every club in Malta saying, does anybody know where Alan Sunderland is, to try and get this picture signed? And one guy came back to me called John Wattersaid. And he said, look, we're not a club, we're just an academy. So I sent him my CV and said, look, can you help me out? Like I'm always looking for. I'm trying to get my way into football. We kind of come to his end in Jersey, so I thought, I'd try it. Anyway, he came back and said, look, I can get you some work. It's a week's work. I went, a week? He went, yeah. He said, just use it as a holiday. I think they give me £100 and flew out to Malta. And it was with AC Milan. So they were running like a soccer camp and they were kind of stuck for local coaches. So he basically just asked anybody.
Yeah, big Italian influence in Malta.
Massive, massive. Well, I went 38 kids. One of them spoke English. The rest didn't. 100 degrees. A couple of coaches with me that were just Milan fans, basically. They just wanted to be part of it. Not really coaches. And it was every day from like 8 till 5. And it was baking and it really hot. And I got to the Thursday and this guy just came over to me and said, look, I like your work and how you're enthusiastic with the kids, etc. Do you want to come and work for me? And I went, who are you? It was that abrupt. Who are you like? He said, you're teaching my son Luke is the lad that speaks English for you because I picked this kid out. And I said, come here and you can come and translate for me. And it was basically an 8-year-old translator for me. And he was fantastic. I still speak to him now. And I think he's like, whatever, 30 something now, maybe something like that, 20. And his dad was the academy manager and assistant manager at first team of Valletta, FC Valletta.
Yeah.
So I basically went back to Jersey, packed up, and straight over to Valletta, and ended up. I spent 3 years there. There was never any. How can I put it? There was no visions about, I'll make some good money here. It was just a case of going out there and getting the hours that probably I'd been missing. Like to get these sessions and get these hours under my belt to get the experience. So I basically did what they asked me to do. So I'd work with first team and then I'd work with under 16s or under 14s and under 12s. And then I just do what they asked me to do. So because it was, like you said, there's such a massive influence in football anyway in Malta. But it's all split. It's all Italian or English.
Yeah, I've watched a few games, Mick. My work used to take me to Malta quite a lot, and obviously the lack of stadiums and stuff. I've watched double headers and a couple of triple headers at times. Watching the football, and it's still got that influence today, and it's rather, as you say, the Italian sort of maybe Greek influence, and it's also got obviously the massive, Great Britain influence.
Yeah, well, I always found it weird because you go to international break, so we get the time off as well. The club would have time off as well because some of the players from Valletta were playing. Like I did my B license with the captain of Malta, Gilbert Ajus. I think he's under 21s manager now of the national team. I did my B license with him, and he would take time off away to go and play. But he had a job at a bank, I think he did.
Yeah.
And I asked him on the B license, I said, what happened when you played England in 2000? He said, I had to go to the bank and ask him for half a day off. So I could go, run home, get something to eat, get changed, then walk outside of David Beckham. And I was like, wow, this is nuts. It's absolutely crazy. But then you go to the game and there'd be like 3,000 at the game at the stadium. But then if you went into somewhere where we lived in a place called Marsa Scala on the south coast, you'd walk into a bar and there'd be two big televisions. One would have the Italy game on and one would have the England game on, and that'd be packed. And then if somebody scored against England, the Italians used to cheer and vice versa. So it was very, very strange feeling because they've got such a love for football, but not naturally the local football. There wasn't much money in it. There wasn't much, So they all had to have jobs. So I used to work in a water factory, so loading the water bottles for officers. So that was my job, and then I go training at night. but it was quite a good eye opener, a good start for me, especially obviously having AC Milan over. They came the following year, so I worked on that. You know, Daniele Massaro came. If you remember Daniele Massaro, he was there. He was there like advocate over there. He'd come over and visit the people and do all the PR stuff for them. You
It's
know, he was
also good. It's give you good exposure, Mick, to everything as well, isn't it? Like you, as you say, you're doing the academy, you're doing our coaching, you're pretty much running and seeing bits and pieces of everything. It was probably a great starting point for you, right?
oh, absolutely massive because, like I said, you've gone 1 minute. For example, I would maybe go Saturday morning, 7 o'clock would be under eights. Then I might do another session with the under tens, and then right, do you want to come and watch the first team? So I'd be not so much watching the first team play. I'd be watching what the coaches are doing and the
Yeah,
warm up and things like that, just to try and gain as much experience as I could. And I did enjoy it. And like I said, there's still guys I still speak to guys from Malta now. In fact, my wife, as when I went to do my A license in 2018-19, I went back to Malta, and there were some guys that they now got pro licenses that we did our B licenses with together, but they've now got a pro license, and the head coach of this head coach, and they're still very, very open to allowing you to go into training, allowing you to sit and have a dinner with them so they can sit and chat football with you, and they were so open to it. It was really nice. And but my wife was always, oh, that'd be a nice place to go and visit, or a nice place to go and work. But at the minute, it's just not worked at the moment. So, but yeah, I had
yeah.
a good 3 years there.
And then from there, Mick, did you go to, was it the US you went to?
Yeah, yeah. I'd kind of got the same idea as just what could we do next? What could be next on the list? I've gone 3 years.
Yeah,
So I went looking around, and I got an application into the New York Red Bulls. So they was doing like the community football basically, and all that malarkey. So 2007, I got the call saying I got an interview, and I flew over to came back to England and had a trial. Like you have a trial over a weekend, and then got sent out, and my club was with New York, linked with New York Red Bulls, where your friend Matt was up in Connecticut.
yeah,
So he was,
yeah.
they was with, I think they were linked with the New England Revolution.
That's
So
it.
they'd all do those independent ones where, like, I remember we were there because it's all one company basically, and they're all franchised. I think we were there about 3 or 4 weeks, and the Chicago guys had not got their visas through on time. They got a delay. So we went to Chicago to cover them. So
Right.
we ended up having a week in Chicago. So again, it was just a great experience of seeing somewhere that basically we'd only seen on TV. I'd been to America, but not to see it like this as in depth as this. You hit the main tourist points, but then we got to see a little bit more in depth of like New York, Chicago, and New York State and things like this. So it was I was there 9 months. Really good growing football. Um, Everything was like fed to you. The parents, if you stayed at a house with somebody, they had to offer cleaning, somewhere to clean yourself, and a bed. That was
Right.
all that was stipulated. We had guys that were going out on speedboats, taking up in aeroplanes, private jets, parties, things like this. And it was like, whoa, these guys were living their life. I think there was 65 coaches was out there with myself, and dotted out all over the place. And they were just having the time of their lives. And I was kind of a bit jealous that I didn't do it like 15 years before.
And is that to grow the game in the US, Mick? Is that is really to try
Yeah,
and put football on the map?
that's because at that time, yeah, it was just growing because just after I'd got there, David Beckham signed for Galaxy.
Right.
So it was that time when they were trying to hit it, big. And so we did so what we would do, we'd go club to club and then pick out the best players for the week, and they get
Right.
tickets for the game. So on one game, for example, we did a Wednesday night against Dallas at Giant Stadium. There
Mm-hmm.
was 10,000 there, but Giant Stadium holds something like 80,000. So you're thinking, wow, this looks pretty empty on a Wednesday night, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then when David Beckham came, there was nearly 70,000 there,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah,
just incredible, you know.
he had a
And we
massive
got,
aspect.
yeah, he brought the he brought the crowds in for sure. And I do recall that they'd sold in the hot. It's all mixed, but generally in America. But the home end, where we were sort of based, where all the New York fans were, they were selling Galaxy shirts, and I think they sold 2,500 by half time with Beckham's name on. So it showed the influence he had and how he'd gone about doing stuff, you know. His PR was unbelievable, and so we got to see a little bit in depth on that, and we got, you know, we got privileged. We got Tuesday mornings. We used to go and train at Giant. We'd have like a coaches meeting, so we got to meet in the dressing rooms of the Jets and the Giants. So they would get ready for training, the American football guys. They would go out to training, and we would nick in and sit in there and have like a classroom session. And
Right.
then when they were due to come back in, we would go out and we were allowed to play on Giant Stadium for, we'd have an hour's game, you know, just have a kick around. But to pass the ball, you knock the ball into midfield and have a little look around thinking, wow, this is crazy. I'm playing in the middle of this.
I,
And these, you know, you want to, you know, have them good memories.
I know you had different experiences and had sort of different roles in the US, Mick, but was any of that more to do with a club rather than sort of like the league or the association?
Well, no, because you was always associated through the Red Bulls. So the clubs
Right.
would then pay the Red Bulls monthly, weekly to have what they have a pro coaching, as they would put
Okay.
it. So in my first 4 months, I was going to like 4 or 5 different clubs each
Right. So,
each
so
week.
what? Like that? Obviously, you work for the Red Bulls, but that they would then like send you out to like affiliate clubs and clubs lower down the
Yeah.
pyramid, right? Right.
So
Okay.
they would allocate me to go to different places. So what I used to come down to and then over the book near the city. I started in that week. Then went into the summer. They did summer camps where everybody got sent New York State, New York City, which was pretty
Mick,
good.
Mick, your line's going a little bit, so I don't know if you could come a little bit closer to the mic.
Sorry, man. Is that better?
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, it was. So in the summer, you kind of got sent for a week at a time, different places where people had signed up for camps, and then on what they call the fall, the autumn season, where you go up until the end of your contract. So it would be about like August to November. I got sent to one club
Right.
in near Philadelphia in called Haddonfield. I stayed with their club. So I just travelled 4 miles each day. So it ended up being like, you know, only 20 miles a week, 30 miles a week.
Yeah.
So that was pretty, that was a little bit, he said, I'll make it easy for you. But once you got used to traveling all the miles before, you didn't mind traveling again, you know. So,
Sure.
but you got to work with, it was majority of people were quite good. They were really, really nice, welcoming, eager to learn, wanted to pick your brains. You know, I'd sit with 1 or 2 coaches for hours. Just they were asking about and they were asking basic questions. You know, how's it work a 4-3-3? How do you work with a back three? How do you know these kind of questions? So it's what we naturally we would understand how to explain it. So I'd go through it with them, and I'd be helpful. Although there was 1 or 2 that there was one guy I met, and as soon as I walked in the door, shook hands, told me who he was. I'm in charge of this club. You'll do what I tell you to do. I don't care who you've played with, where you've played, and who you've worked with. I've worked with better. I've played with better. So don't try and outdo me. And I was like, wow, there's an opening gambit. So I don't know what his problem was, because I mean we'd not even spoken before. And he would then spend most of his time just trying to override anything you said. So if you said something to the kids, and we're talking 10, 11-year-old kids, for example, go out and try and do this, during your game, try and do this, remember to try and do this. He would then say, okay, kids, stop, come here. Don't listen to him. I'm in charge. Do this, this, this. And you're like, what? So I said to him one day, why are you paying all this money to have me here when you're just overriding just to prove that you're in charge? He said, well, that's the point. I am in charge. I was like, oh, okay. All right, fair enough. So I just basically had about a month where I just sort of nodded and smiled at him, not to upset the apple cart, and basically try and get out of the once the contract had finished, to believe it. And then gradually people were letting me know this is how he is. He wants to micromanage and things like this. And again, I learned a new aspect of not everybody was as open and helpful as others had been. Just some people were just in there for themselves and what they could get out of it. And I was like, oh wow, okay. So it kind of opened my eyes a little bit that way.
But as I say, good learning experience, good sort of way of managing different individuals and obviously senior individuals in football clubs. So, Mick, how did you get from there to your first stint in Iceland to work for IBV?
Um, I've been going back and forth to America and trying to get the golden ticket of staying over there for good.
Sure.
And the only way that it used to happen was people would get married. So I thought that was a little bit dramatic, a bit drastic to just try and stay in a country. So I'd come back and I got to work with, I got to chatting with a guy. I won't say his name because he's still working in a pro club
Yeah.
in the Premier League. But he said, listen, we got chatting one day. He said, listen, would you fancy a little bit abroad? I said, like, where is it? He said, it's a team called EBWAF, they call it, IBV.
Yeah.
I said, okay. I said, I fancy a bit of that, yeah. So I was single, everything was okay. So flew over there. And again, culturally, just a massive difference. They would have 110-mile-an-hour winds, 4 foot of snow, and it would just be like a normal day.
Yeah,
Just get
I
on with
know,
it. Get
I
some
know.
gas.
We've spoken about it, but like it's one thing going to Iceland and Reykjavik. For people that don't know, like Mick's gone to an island called the Vestman Islands. Obviously, it's famous for um, a lot of things. They've had the volcanoes the last few years that have made it very famous. But IBV, or it used to be a 3 hour boat ride from
Yeah.
Reykjavik over. It's a tiny little island. Up until last season, Herman Hreidarsson had gone back there to be manager, and he got promoted back to the Premier League. But I've been to games there. It's one of my favourite places to watch
Yeah.
football. But also, it's very remote, right, Mick? What did we say? A couple of thousand on the island.
There's 4,000 people.
Yeah,
And when I got there, like you said, it was in the summer. There's two boats,
yeah,
and
two
depending on
routes.
the tides, two routes, and the one was 3 hour
Yeah,
or 30 minutes, and the
yeah,
30-minute one was great. The 3 hour one would be, ooh, wow, it could be adventurous. So, but when I got there, they were quite established in the Premier League. I've heard rumours that David Moyes went over there as a study visit.
right.
Now, I don't know how true that is now. I've got some CPD with him soon. So I want to try and ask that question if I could. But yeah, so he was over there, and the current Republic of Ireland manager, Heimir Hallgrímsson, he's the guy that was the manager of Iceland in 2016 when they beat England.
Yeah,
He was the head coach then, and he was really encouraging for me to. He helped me a lot, to be honest. He was really good with us. And I only stayed 3 months because when I got there, the friend, so to speak, who had helped me get the job, was keeping half the salary. So I found that a little bit insulting, to be honest. So
Right.
I didn't mind 10% or a chunk, but not half my wages. So I spoke with the club and said, look, I don't think it's fair that I'm. And they said, look, we didn't know about this. The club was, which I agree, no problem. So I went back and but kept in touch with a lot of people. There's a couple of English lads living out there that were working out there. One's still a coach. One's now just a family guy out there. But it was one of those things I sat and thought for years after I've got unfinished business there, and then I kept in touch with the sporting director, a local guy, and we always kept in contact, and then I'd gone doing a few other things from obviously 2010 and then they called again in 2016 saying, would you want to go back? And I went back for another 3 years. So yeah, that was the place I'll always remember. It's a fantastic place. At first, it's very scary because of the price of everything, the
Yeah.
weather, the remoteness. You're like, what am I doing here? And then all of a sudden, I took my wife with me on the second stint, and she was like, listen, you've just got to forget about this, and just get on with normal life. Stop looking at everything you're buying as, well, look at the price of that. You know, so we ended up just, okay. And we got fully immersed in it and really enjoyed it, to be honest. Like you said, it's a great place to visit, but to live there was fantastic.
Yeah, I think, as I say, I think it's just one of them places. As I say, it's because of I would say my association with the football there. It's something that I love even more, but it's more just because of the people, right? The people are just really warm individuals. You know, they really look after you. But it's more the can do attitude, as you say, especially people in the Investment Islands that are sometimes cut off from
Yeah,
civilization for a while. You know, if the boat stops running, it's that sort of lifeline, for instance, is cut off. But they're amazing people. Just as I say, brilliant can-do attitude. As I say, the football team's been up and down a little bit in the last few years. But yeah, it's a really picturesque place, right in the middle of the mountains, and you can see the sea. And say it's just a real one-off place, I think.
yeah. Well, it is actually a volcano.
Yeah,
That's how it
yeah,
became, and they've just had their last year was their, oh no, 51st, as we were away. It was the 50th anniversary was 2023 of the
right.
actual, and we
Yeah, the
spoke
first
to
one.
people. Yeah, we spoke to people who had helped people get out. We spoke to people who had been taken out as a young child
Yeah,
and had ventured to go on a boat and get away. And it was like, wow, this is, yeah, it was some great memories there, and some great people because they had to try and influence to get foreign players to go in and then explain to them, well, no, it's not Reykjavik, it's on this island. And then
yeah.
it's quite an achievement for them to, because they won the FA Cup in 2018.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember seeing the scenes as they come back on the boat with the fireworks and all the flags
Yeah,
and stuff. As you say, it was a big achievement for them given
yeah.
their location. Because as you say, people think Iceland and think, oh, great, we're living in Reykjavik, one of the best cities in the world, and this, that, and
Yeah,
everything else. And then, as you say, it's like, no, actually, you're on an island, away from Reykjavik.
yeah. And it's yeah, quite unique. They've got the whales there now
Yeah,
because the Free Willy. They
yeah.
kept Free Willy there during the filming of Free Willy, and then they opened it up as a sanctuary. So they've got two whales there now, that all kicked in when we was there, and that sounds like it's going very, very well. So that's a good little attraction again to people, but it is something unique, yeah, for sure.
And then, so what was you actually doing at IBV? Mike, what was your role?
um, Again, it was a little bit like Malta. It was just what cover where we could. Um, I was doing under 10s, under 14s, under 16s. And then in the morning, I'd speak with Hamir and say, look, can I come down to the first team training? Because they train in the morning. I'll go and watch their training. He would come and ask me what I thought, which I thought was fantastic. This guy was a first team manager that, usually they've got their own ideas and their own plans. They don't want to involve nobody. And he was quite open. Listen, what do you think there? And, would you do this? And would you do that? And I was getting on quite well with some of the players. And it was just a bit of everything, really. There was girls' football. There was like toddlers almost. And so it was that community feel that you just did what you thought was as best for the people around you. So
Sure.
that was, and I just honestly I'd get calls of this coach is sick, just go and cover it. Okay, so I go in, and it then put me onto the idea of giving players the input, because I think there was one time I got caught where I'd not got a plan set because it wasn't my group, and I think it was under 12s or something like that. And then I goes in, and I just went, right, what do you want to do? And they all looked and said, what? I'm supposed to lead this, and what do you want to do? Would you tell me what you want to do? Or can we do this? I said, what have you done with your last coach? Oh, we did this drill. Can you remember it? And I give them 5 minutes. And these were 11-year-old kids. So they took some cones off me and built this thing up. And it was a basic, simple passing drill. And then another one said, well, I've got another idea. And then that ownership came in where I was saying, like, well, you have some idea. It's your game. You have the input. And I use it to this day. Even now, I'll say, listen, how do you want to do this? Teams have come to me and said, look, we're playing this formation. We don't like it. It's no good. It's not working. I said, we're going to change it then. And I'll leave it with them. Because it's, again, you point out how many times in a season have I scored or done an assist. And they said, well, none. So because I'm not involved. All I'm doing is facilitating my ideas into you. It's up to you how you take it on during your game, or, as long as they tell me what they're changing, then I can look, at how the games are going. But I used to give them the opportunity to try and run their own training sessions. And not all the time, but sometimes, yeah.
So did Mick, the manager there, was that his last role before he took over the national team?
Yeah, he took
Right.
it the joint thing, didn't he? Around, I think it was around 2012. Yeah, that was his last role. Then he went in for a long stint with the national team, wasn't it?
Yeah, because obviously he made a lot of waves and press about, because he used to be a dentist as well, didn't he? Like, he was a part-time dentist still.
Yeah,
Yeah, they had some impressive results, obviously culminating in beating England and having a couple of good campaigns. But I always think it's, again, probably a really good place to learn and implement new ideas, and just concentrate on your craft, because they are football crazy, right?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
say what people don't realise is, like, to your point, every kid in Iceland gets coached by a UEFA class
Yeah,
coach. You look at England, it's normally the parents that put their hands up or played the highest
yeah,
or coach or whatever. But there, even from under fives, under 60s, the teams that I'm in constant communication with, they're training an hour a day for 5-6
yeah,
days a week, and then UEFA like A and B class coaches. So it is a hotbed for football. I think it will continue to be that way now that they have the football halls. There is one on the island, right? There's a football hall
yeah,
there, isn't it, next to the ground?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. It is. Yeah, it's uh, the only downside. Actually, I think they're renovating. Um,
Was IBV's the one where it didn't have any ends on it, so it was just like a proper wind tunnel? It was covered, and it was
yes,
Astro down, but
yes.
there weren't no
Hastings
ends.
Valley. It's called
Yeah,
Hastings Valley. Yeah, and
yeah,
it's back. Obviously, everything's because it's a small island. Everything's on the sea. But
yeah,
yeah, there's like a wind tunnel comes through, and it's. We have actually done it where they would play out from the back, because if the goalkeeper at the time there would try and take a goal kick, there was a good 50-50 it might go in his own goal, and
yeah.
the wind was that strong. Or he could score with the wind going the other way. So it was very strange to try and teach certain things with the weather being it was. But they have got a hall. But the downside of that is there was no heating in it when I was there.
Right.
So in the winter it'd be like a fridge or a freezer, and in the summer you were cooking, and
Yeah.
there was no in between. But it was great facilities to have on the island next to, like I said, next to the stadium. I've heard this. They've changed there was a separate clubhouse and dressing rooms, wasn't it? And it was a long,
Yeah.
not a long walk, but maybe a 50-meter walk between. But now I
Yeah.
think
That's it.
they've done that. They've changed it to a tunnel now, or they've put the dressing rooms next to the stand, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Last time I went, I think the change rooms were underneath that main stand. Obviously, you got the
yeah,
seating over the other side, but I think they put it underneath. But
yeah,
so you obviously you went there in 2010, Mick, and obviously you went
yeah,
back in
yeah.
16 for 3 years. But in between that, like you had numerous jobs back in the UK for Bolton, Chelsea, out in South Korea. Like, talk to me about
Yeah.
some of those experiences, because obviously you
Well,
coached in South Korea, you was in Russia, you worked at Accrington, Stanley, and Rotherham in the academies. Like, how did
yeah.
how did those experiences differ before going back to IBV?
We well, I'd gone. We'd left Bolton, and like I said, Bolton had probably sent me to 15, 16 different countries,
Right.
and it was that kind of uh, mentality of um, just wait for the call and go and do it. And it'd ring me up, can you go there? And I go, right, when we're going. I remember one trip, it was like 1 a.m. For Bolton, and David, the boss, had rang me up, and something happened to one of the coaches, like a family issue. He said, look, can you just go to the airport? Where am I going? He said, that when you get there, it never, I got there and didn't even tell me. I met a guy, and he said, right, that's your ticket. And I looked at the ticket, and it was Gibraltar. So I flew to Gibraltar, met up with a nice guy there, Nathan, did some coaching there for a
Where
week, and it was just
where
really,
did where did you coach in Gibraltar, Mick? At the National Stadium,
yeah, just
by Victoria Stadium, yeah, by the airport.
that's it, yeah, that was it. Just in there with and it's just something that had been lined up, which the International Academy had. They did have like I wouldn't say a sales team, but the one or two of them would look to clubs abroad, players that were playing for the club at the time, because they'd have a lot. Sam Allardyce brought a lot of foreigners in, so they'd have the players from Nigeria or America. Stuart Holden, a member from America, so they would then make soccer camps or football camps out in their old towns, so to speak. So we do Vancouver and that. So Gibraltar became about just by accident, and I went out there and really enjoyed it. I liked it. They've got a good football culture there.
Hmm.
Just not got the financial backing. So just those kind of trips, and I'd like to have been on call for the boss each time, and where other people had family commitments and job commitments, I was just waiting for each trip. So I
Yeah.
did a few of those, and then as Bolton went on the decline in the Premier League and got relegated, certain things got cut off, and the International Academy was one of them, unfortunately. So I just basically went looking for any links that I'd made through Bolton and said, look, if you ever need anything, let me know. And one guy came back to me from South Korea. I've been to South Korea with Bolton. We did 3 weeks over there. Really enjoyed it, but we were very remote. It was like, oh my God, it was 10 hours from Seoul, I think, something like that by bus. Anyway, we got there, did this training camp thing 3 weeks, and really enjoyed it. Kept in touch with this guy, and then he said, "Look, I might have a job for you, but don't tell Bolton." And he was thinking I was still linked with Bolton, thinking I was still working for Bolton, and didn't want the guy at Bolton who then left, but this guy in Korea didn't know. Anyway, got to the last day before my flight, and then the email came through, and it was for Chelsea. It lined
Right.
up some. They were running 6 academies in Asia, So I got put in charge of the South Korean one. So I went out there, did a year there, and again, just a different way of all football, same equipment, same idea with kids, same idea with younger players. But then once you finish training, the culture's kicked in of the travel or the weather or the eating habits, the living habits were just so diverse as Asia is. And I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a fantastic place.
That's a
Um,
big that's a big change, right, Mick? So you've gone from like obviously Europe, UK, Malta, even
yeah,
Iceland to a certain aspect, and the US, and then
yeah.
to rock up in Asia Pacific and obviously South Korea. Like that's all the things you've just mentioned. That's a massive change, right?
Oh,
Even
just
from like profile of players and everything.
yeah, just the because they looked they work them so hard. The mentality from the guy that was like in charge of me, he had like the rights from Chelsea to run the academy under their name. Um, and he would say, "Look, I want to take the players' training,"
Mm.
which wasn't really his job, but it wasn't for me to question. But he said they need to work harder, and I'm like, "Well, if they do it intensely for an hour and a half a day, that's enough." His mentality was, if they work 3 hours a day, then they're going to be twice the player. And I was like, no, because it's down to intensity. And he said,
Yeah,
how hard in that, I used to say I'd rather have 1 hour of good training than 3 hours of garbage. But he was intent on it. So he used to take him at one point for about a week. He took him in the morning at 7 a.m. I'd still be in bed. He'd arranged it all in Korean, no translator there at that time. So we'd take the boys out. So it'd be 7 till 8. They'd be training, just running, whatever, steps and all that kind of thing. Then he'd take him at lunchtime, and I didn't know anything about it because all our training was at 5, 6, 7, 8 at night.
mm.
So I'd get the boys at say 7 o'clock at night, and they were shattered. They'd been to school, they'd got up early, trained, been to school, lunchtime they'd trained, back to school, homework. They'd get to me and they're shattered, and I'd be like, "Why are you so tired?" And one of them the translator said, "Oh, they've been training this morning." So then I found out that if they work 3 hours a day, they're going to be twice the player. I had no idea it didn't work like that. And he was
Yeah.
just killing these kids, But it was, I say, the living style of it, I loved it. Um, there was a lot of high rise, a lot of condensed like vertical villages where lots and lots of people lived. We had a trip up to the Samsung factory, which was like almost like a circle of 10 apartment blocks. And in the middle was the factory. So if you got a job at Samsung, you got an apartment, but your family could be there. And they were looking at getting 500-600 kids to come to the training if they could possibly do it. And that was the plan how they were trying to do it. But the amount of people in one area was quite scary. If you think somewhere like Manchester or London is busy or Paris, this is on a different scale. There was just thousands of people in the morning. Unbelievable amount of people just traveling to and from work. And if you got involved in it, included in it in the track, I didn't travel it by car. I used to just go on the metro
Yeah, I've
because it was
watched a few documentaries and read things about like how hard they train them, and you got kids trying to do keep ups for like 6 hours a day and stuff, passing out. Like
yeah,
it's as
yeah,
as is that a culture you think that
yeah.
is still
That
continuing to this day, or is it something with the influx of foreign players and coaches that's changed a little bit?
I think it's changed a little bit. Where you don't have to. It doesn't have to be like you know forced into doing it. And it was high intensity. If you yeah, it was frowned upon if I did like a fun game. A
Right.
fun game of just a little tag game and that. But all I saw it was is kids are having fun, they're active, and it's a prelude to what we're going to do.
Yeah.
play with a smile on your face and all that kind of idea. They were like, well, you're taking it easy on them. And I was like, well, no, I'm not. They're still running. They're still active, not sat on a PlayStation.
Yeah.
This kind of things. And that's where we hit a lot, where I tried to make into that. Maybe that's changed now, but at that time it wasn't. It was about 2012, 2013. But it was a good year there. And it was just a little bit where how the coaching was very, very regimented and very hard going and tough on these kids. And I found that quite tough to accept, to see him sort of punishing kids for various minor things. And you think, no, you don't do it like that. We don't work like that. But it was an excellent experience to see, because they flew us to the Philippines for pre-season, because it was getting in minus 10, 15, 20
Right.
degrees in Korea. We'd had a meeting. Chelsea had a meeting in Hong Kong. So we had to fly to Hong Kong, and everybody arrived from all these 6 academies. So Singapore, Japan, Philippines, China, all those got together. We all met, and we had like coaches education stuff, where the guys from Chelsea would come over and they would show us things that Chelsea were using, or at the time it was Ancelotti, but Mourinho had a big influence. So he'd put some words in and some training sessions in that we could all pick on,
Right.
and we all got to work together. So in that meeting, kind of up with these people, we arranged to take training, pre-season training over in Philippines. So I went there for 3 weeks, which was a great experience. And I got allowed to go to Japan for the Club World Cup in 2012. Chelsea had won the Champions League, and the Club World Cup final was in Yokohama. So I got flown over there. There was one of the representatives from Chelsea that allowed me to go over, so I got to go in the skybox with Roman Abramovich and Ray Wilkins and these kind of people. And again, just sat there thinking, what am I doing here? Just how have I managed to blag this? But great experience to see how they run the football over in Asia at the top, the highest level, which was like pristine, absolutely brilliantly organised, structured, fantastic, and all that. And again, you try and nick these ideas to try and make sure that you structure in your own ways, that when you do take it from, say, Korea back to Rotherham United as an example, then you want to have these certain structures added into how the players are that you've got around you. You know what I mean?
What would you say you took from there, Mick, given it was so different to sort of like the US and Europe that you've worked in before?
That regimented style where it's everyone's on time. It's boom. Everyone's on time.
Mm-hmm.
Every train, you can't like if we have training now, the guys will go, I got caught up in traffic,
Mm-hmm.
Or the bus was late. South Korea, there was no buses late, there was no trains late. They were absolutely bang on time. So there was no excuses for being late, for example. When he got there, they got every minute. Other places I've been to, they'll chat for 20 minutes. And when you actually look at the ball time, the ball moving time in 90 minutes of a training session might be 55 minutes.
Right.
In Korea, it probably in 90 minutes will probably be about 87 minutes.
So
And the
work
other three,
times, work times, work time, right? And as I say, a
yeah,
good lesson to learn about the
and I
timing, because
kept,
obviously,
yeah, and I've still got it myself now. I've kept it myself as well, and it upsets some people, but I just say, well, look, I do it the way I do it. If you don't want me to do it, don't let me have the job, and
yeah,
I'll be straight with people. But that's how that's really gone on with that. Is that kind of bit regimented, and the way they structure things and the way it's so laid out brilliantly, and that I took that away from there with me. And then when I think, what was that? That'd be 2013. So then I ended up doing a little bit of independent work then. The guy that left Bolton went to Accrington Stanley, so I got a bit of work there with them. I stayed there for 6 months. It was a constant fight to get paid every month, sorry. So I kind of found that a little bit, I didn't like it. I didn't like the idea that I felt that people were trying to get hoodwinked there. There was or something a little bit secretive going off, little quiet chats behind me. I just didn't find it very, I'm quite straightforward, easily read, and say how things are. And there it wasn't. It was always something not right, always promised a full-time job, never came, things like that.
Right.
So quickly, I quickly moved on there, but then continued this thing where I was trying to get contacts, continuing contacts. And through Bolton, again, there was one came from Nigeria, which I was a bit skeptical about because obviously Nigeria doesn't have the best reputation of safety and security. But I thought I'd take a chance. It had nothing to lose, so I went over there. I did about 16 days over there. I went like 3 or 4 times, and again, the culture there is unbelievable. Very fast paced, and a bit scary at times because you're on this roundabout merry-go-round that you just can't seem to get off. And I felt so shattered getting back on the plane because you just have to keep up with everybody. But there were, again, massive football culture because you could see why the players come. But the only one who was so desperate to get out of their situation to go and make money as they see it. But met some nice people there, met some great people there, but always with an eye on their natural ability to negotiate, if you get me.
Is that Mick where you were saying that they're using football obviously to just try and better their life, and as I say, that's their real showcase to try and get them a move to Europe or somewhere that can earn them obviously a lot more money than playing domestically in Nigeria. Yeah,
that's it. Because there's I don't know how the backing is for the football league there, but I don't think it was a huge amount of money made. So that was a tough call for them. So they were also they're trying to jump. But the idea, what I always explained, I still get maybe 20, 25 messages a week from African players. Can you help me do this? And if you look at my LinkedIn at the moment, I'm not actually in professional football at the moment. So, and they're still desperate to get that. They'll contact anybody to do this, because if they can get out of that situation, but they want to jump, I always tell them, try and stay in your own league, in your own country, establish yourself there, and then people will see. But they're not patient enough for that. They want to go straight from being 16-year-old amateur that kicks a ball around with his friends to the Premier League, and they don't understand that process or that huge gap. We're talking now at the moment, talking about the gap between the Championship and the Premier League a lot, how big it is and what a step up it is. So you're thinking of a step up from even a professional in Nigeria or semi-professional in Nigeria to go into the Premier League. That's what they're after, because it's what they know, it's what they've seen. But it was quite an eye-opener with the food, for example, eating curried goat or something like that, to having armed guards in the car with me just in case.
What would you say was your biggest takeaway from Nigeria, Mick?
It's just how going in there was thinking, not having trust, because they're all trying to hoodwink you.
Yeah.
But they're not. They're just, it's just their nature. And it's their negotiating skills. They want to try and get the best deal they can, because money's so hard to come by, and you have to work so hard to get it. They want to make sure they look after it. So I think in Europe we might be a little bit frivolous with how we easy come, easy go kind of mentality. There, they work really hard for what they get. They get very little for working so hard. So when they see somebody like, for example, for the trip I went out there, I was paid a certain amount, but for a professional footballer there, that might be a month's money. And I went out for just over 2 weeks. So then the head coach of the academy I visited, I don't know how much he got, but for example, say he got like £40 a week, and I got £500 for 2 weeks. He went then to negotiate, well, I want the same money as Mick.
Yeah, sure.
Straight away. Yeah, I need to have that money. And they were like, well, no, it can't work like that because this is a one-off. Although when I went, there was 31 players in the academy. And by the time I left, there was 140. So we got over 102 weeks signed up but the lack of trust within each other was evident. So we did a radio show in Lagos, a bit like 5 Live or something, Talk Sport. And we're chatting away, and then somebody came on, and we had to open the lines up, blah, blah. A couple came on. Obviously, they'd advertised me as ex-Chelsea coach, ex-Bolton coach. Had I met Mourinho? Was like 6 of the calls was, have you met Mourinho? That was basically the other one I know. And then one of them called, said, this is recorded, it's a lie. So that was the truth. They didn't even believe that the radio show was live. So I grabbed a newspaper. So pass me that newspaper. So the guy that I was with was reading the newspaper. So give me the newspaper. So I read the title of the newspaper heading and the date and read down, and the lines just lit up. Everybody then realised it was real, and they all wanted in on it. And once you get them to make them understand that they can trust you.
Yeah.
Then you're on the second week was far easier than the first week. Going into the last few days, I extended it, and I did coach education, and there was high-end coaches coming to be educated, because then they got that trust to this guy. Then they trusted that I was there, and and still now we're talking. 11 years later, he still calls. He said, "Can you come over? Can you come over?" Because it was the best 2 weeks we'd ever done, because of. But I think it was just the honesty. I'd gone in and said, "Look, no, this is how it's going to be. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it." And we got 1 or 2 lads. I then put him onto some contacts in Norway and in Sweden and in Malta. And then this guy's going to do a little bit of business over there. So it's always good that you've, linked somebody up and got something out. That was the good thing of it.
I think, Mick, coming back to what we'd said at the start, the power of football. Obviously, you're going to different countries. You're learning new, not just on the field, but you're learning obviously new skills and new transferable skills, new ways of life, new experiences off the field as well. And I think that, as you say, that's the power of football. That one, you're doing all this, but two, you're opening up a massive network. So, Mick, I think you've got too much to offer not to do a part 2. So I think we'll park it there whilst you're in Nigeria, and we'll return for a part 2 for the rest of your career. So amazing experiences up to now, and as I say, we've only probably reached halfway. I thank you for your time, and
no problem.
We'll speak again. Amazing career, Mick. If anyone wants to. And I'll say this on the second part as well. If anyone wants to connect with you or future opportunities, where's the best place for anyone listening to this to do so?
It seems to be LinkedIn at the moment. So the LinkedIn seems to be the way forward as everybody seems to do business wise. But there's also the Facebook. I'll pop the links to you on a text. I'll pop you the direct links to my add it if you wish. Okay. But yeah, thank you very much for your time.
No, Mick, it's been great, and I look forward to part 2.
Okay, mate. Thank you. All the best.
Take care. Bye-bye now.
Cheers. Bye.